everyone, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read from January till April. Now this video was once again, like I already said in a couple of my other previous videos, was very difficult for me to start. So yeah, if I look way more anxious than usual, it's because I am really anxious, but I'm going to push through and try and film this video. So yeah, let's just get into all of the books that I read from January till April. So first of all, I read a lot of volumes of Demon Slayer. Specifically, I read from volume 8 till volume 23, which is the end of the series. So I basically finished the entire series in like manga form. I haven't watched like a lot of the anime. I've watched season 1 and that's about it. So I do want to like watch the entire anime once the entire anime is finished, because I don't think it's finished yet, but I do want to watch the entire anime as well. I really like this. It was very emotional at the end. Like volume 23 made me cry like the entire time that I read it. And yeah, I highly recommend this series. It's very popular for a reason, and yeah, if you're just like a beginner to like manga, I would recommend it. So yeah. Then next we have Queer Body Power. Now this was a reread because I already read this with an ebook that I got from NetGalley, and yeah, I bought a physical copy of this and I decided to basically almost immediately reread it and annotate it, and I still liked it as much as I did the first time that I read it. It's a very good book, very interesting subject, and I'm very glad that disability was talked about because the author is disabled themselves. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend it. I'm not going to talk about it more because, again, because I am so anxious, I just want to go through this video as fast as I can. And I do have a lot of books to talk about, so yeah, I highly recommend it. Then next we have Carmilla. This is basically like a lesbian vampire story. It's not as like overtly like lesbian as I was expecting, because other people described it like that. And yeah, it's basically like Dracula almost, but like with women instead. Like it's not exactly the same as Dracula, but it has like similar themes. So yeah, it was quite good. I enjoyed it. It's one of the only classics that I actually read quite fast, mainly because it was very short. But yeah, I could have done without like the racism in it though. But yeah, I would still recommend it. It is very interesting, and again, it is basically like a women version of Dracula. So yeah, if that interests you, I would recommend it. So yeah. Then next we have Ace and Arrow Journeys. This is basically a book about the asexuality spectrum and the aromantic spectrum. It's very informative. I got it as an ARC from NetGalley, and I only like finished about like 80% of the book, so I didn't completely finish it, but I did read most of it. It was very informative. If that's like a book that you want, like an informative book about like the asexual spectrum and the aromantic spectrum, I would recommend it. Don't know if it's already out yet because I did get it from NetGalley, but I did get it from NetGalley in like January, so maybe by this time of the year it will already be out. So yeah, if this interests you, I would recommend it. Then next I read My Way With You. This is a BL manga that I mainly read because the comments promised me that it was mainly fluff, and then I read it and I felt like I read the wrong manga because it was like 90% spicy stuff, and I really don't like mangas like that. So I didn't get what I was promised by the comments. So yeah, the story was pretty decent according to my review of it, but I was disappointed because of the comments, like basically telling me that it was one thing but the actual manga being another. So yeah. Then next I read Delivery Hug Therapy. This is another BL manga, and this one's actually unfinished, but I read everything that was out and it was pretty good so far. I am going to continue it and see where it goes. And yeah, let's just move on to the next one. I am really speeding through these books, but again, I don't really feel that well. So yeah. The next book is a book that I listened to with an audiobook while playing Animal Crossing, and that is They Do Return But Gently Lead Them Back. This was pretty okay. I didn't like love it, but I didn't hate it either. It was pretty neutral to me, And yeah, it was like a good book to listen to while playing Animal Crossing because I didn't really need to think a lot while listening to it. So yeah. Then next I read Living with Him, Volume 1 and 2. This was another BL manga, but it did feel like unfinished to me somehow. It wasn't unfinished, but it was just like okay to me. It felt like something was missing. So yeah, this was okay, but I didn't like 100% love it. So yeah. Then next I read Muted. This is a webtoon with a mute main character. And yeah, I quite like this. The art is very pretty. Again, I did feel like something was missing. Maybe I just read it like too fast, or maybe I expected too much. But it does have like disability representation. And yeah, I did quite like it. The art is pretty. I do recommend it. Then next I read Nerd Crush. This is an arc that I got from Neck Alley about like cosplay. It did feel a bit like, again, it felt a bit flat for me. It read very fast though, which I really appreciate as someone who's dyslexic. So yeah, if you want like a fast read about cosplay, I would recommend it. But to me, it felt like something was missing. So yeah. Then next is The Sprite and the Gardener. This is an arc that I got from Neck Alley. It's a graphic novel. The art was very pretty, but I would like a longer version of it just because, again, because it was so short, it felt a bit flat for me. But yeah, that seems to be like a theme, I guess, with most of the books I read in February. I'm assuming this is already. So yeah, maybe that's just me. I did really like the art, but again, I would like a longer version of this. So yeah. Then next I read Memento Mori. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, but I don't have like the energy to like learn how to pronounce it. But yeah, this was a very difficult read. I got this as an arc from Neck Alley as well. This was a graphic novel, and like I already said, very difficult to read for me because it deals with medical trauma and medical procedures in general. And yeah, it was very difficult to read for me personally, but it was a very important read. And I did really appreciate it for like what it talked about. And yeah, I do recommend it, but do be warned, like it talks about like medical procedures and medical trauma. So yeah. Then next was another book from Nick Alley, and that was Autistic World Domination. For some reason that was very difficult for me to say, so I'm really sorry. But yeah, this was quite informative, but it didn't really work well for me considering I am not only autistic, I'm also like chronically ill and disabled. And a lot of the tips that were in it didn't really work for me. A lot of the tips were also very like positive and like optimistic, and I'm not a very optimistic person, so the tone of the book didn't really work for me personally, but for other people it probably would work. So yeah, if you're like not chronically ill and disabled, I would recommend this. But yeah, for me a lot of the tips didn't really work because I am chronically ill. So yeah, I would still recommend it, but just, you know, figure out if it would work for you first, I guess. So yeah. Then next I read My Love Mix-Up Volume 1 and 2. This has a TV show that I really enjoyed, and yeah, I decided to read the mangas as well, and I at this point have like 5 volumes of it, and I really enjoy this series. I read volumes 1 and 2 already, and it's just as cute as the live action. I really enjoy it, and yeah, I've talked about these on my channel before, so I'm gonna put them down now because you guys have heard me talk about them before. So yeah. Then next I read Hanako-kun. I specifically read volumes 4 till 8, and this is none of those. This is volume 0, but this was the first one that I picked up. So yeah, I read volumes 4 till 8. This series makes me quite nervous because I don't really know what's gonna happen next, which is basically the case for every single book or manga that you read. But specifically for this series, it makes me very anxious. But the art is very, very pretty. There's also an anime of this, which is equally very, very pretty. So I would highly recommend it, even if it does make me very, very nervous. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I still have a couple of books to go through. And I'm really starting to not feel well. I have a headache, and yeah, it's just not good. And I still wanted to film a video after this, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. But yeah, let's just move on to the next book. Then next I read another arc from NetGalley, and that was The Fight for Midnight. Now this was a book that I felt very like 50-50 about. Like it had a very good message, but yeah, it just didn't connect with me. I think it was because there were way too many characters being introduced for a book that was like 200 pages. I feel like you should just stick to like a couple characters and just develop them, and not just add new characters and then never do anything with them, because that makes it very confusing. But yeah, it did have like a good idea. Like there was a good idea behind it, but it wasn't executed that well in my opinion. So yeah, I would still like recommend it if you want like a short and like fast book about like a very important subject. But yeah, for me it just didn't really work because of how many characters were introduced. So yeah, then next was The Secret Summer Promise. Now this was also an arc from Nick Alley. This had disability representation and LGBT plus representation. I quite enjoyed this, but for me it didn't really work that well because the characters were written like a lot younger than they actually were, and that made it like kind of confusing sometimes. But it did have like a good idea behind it once again, and I did quite enjoy it. It read very fast, and again, it had disability rep, and it was written by a disabled author. So yeah, I would highly recommend it still. So yeah. Then next I read all 6 volumes of Cheerful Amnesia. Now this was very repetitive at times, but I didn't really mind it too much, but the comments seemed to mind it a lot. So I am gonna mention it in case that you guys want to read it and also like decide this is way too repetitive for me. So yeah, it was a bit repetitive, I guess, and yeah, it was very cute in my opinion. It had a lot of spicy stuff though, so if you're not into that kind of stuff, I wouldn't recommend it. But it was very cute as well in my opinion. And yeah, it's like a lesbian couple and one of them gets amnesia, and yeah, it's very like cute and funny and spicy at times. So yeah, I would recommend it. It only has 6 volumes, so it reads quite fast. So yeah. Then next I read The Girl I Want Is Handsome. I read both volumes, which is the entire series, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, mainly because of the way that they handled the whole like the girl kind of like thinks that the other girl looks like a guy. And I thought they were gonna do the whole thing of like she doesn't know that she's like a girl and not a guy. But they didn't do that, and the girl like genuinely liked her because of the way that she was, not because she looked like a guy. And I really enjoyed that. I'm glad they didn't go down like the wrong route, I guess, in my opinion. And overall their relationship was very cute, and I also really enjoyed the side couple in this series. And I actually kind of want like a physical copy of this because it was so good in my opinion. So yeah, let me just stop talking about this because I'm starting to feel worse and worse, and I feel like I'm not going to be able to finish this video. So yeah, let's just speed through the last couple ones, I guess, as fast as I can. So yeah, then next I reread Like a Charm. This was to prepare for a buddy read that I was going to do of the sequel of this book, which is called Like a Curse. This series has dyspraxia representation, and yeah, I really like this series, or what I've read from it so far. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Then next I read another arc from Nick Alley, and that was Sunbeams in the Sky. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced it, but at this point I don't have any like mental capacity to correct myself. So yeah, I read this volume. It was very confusing. The main characters were twins, and their drawings were not like different enough for me to recognize them. So yeah, very confusing. I do think I want to continue this series if I get my hands on like an arc for the 2nd volume. So yeah, then next we have Cut Over Criteria. This is another arc that I got from Nick Alley, and yeah, again, I didn't really fully connect with it. I did read it while I was on painkillers, and like very strong painkillers that make me like a bit disoriented and like dizzy and nauseous. And yeah, so I don't really remember anything from it basically. So it could be because of that I didn't really like connect with it, because my brain just wasn't 100% like right now, for example. But yeah, it didn't connect with me. Let's move on to the next book. Then next I read Snow Fairy. I also read this as an arc from Nick Alley and while I was on painkillers, because I read multiple mangas in one day while I was on painkillers. And yeah, I like this one way more. It was very cute and the art was very pretty. That was the main thing that like caught my attention. And I would buy like a physical version of this. But once again, I don't really remember too much from the manga. I do remember more from this one than from the other one, but still not a lot. So yeah, I did quite enjoy this. I would recommend it. Again, it is a BL manga, so if that's not your thing, don't read it. Then next I read this book. I'm not gonna bother trying to pronounce the title because again, it's getting really difficult for me to film this. But yeah, this was another arc that I got from Nick Alley. I didn't enjoy it too much. I gave it like 2.5 stars, I think. And yeah, I did like appreciate some of the like things said in this book, but the main character was just so like not unlikable necessarily, but she just did so many things that I feel like nobody would do. Like she would never listen to her dad at all, which I can understand teenagers not listening to their parents, but I feel like if your parent tells you like, hey, you have a concussion, please don't go outside without anyone being there with you because I'm scared you're gonna die. And then you as a teenager are like, no, I am gonna go outside and put myself in danger once again. I feel like that's just a bit much. Like I feel like no teenager would actually do that without genuinely like wanting to die, and she doesn't. So like it was a lot. And again, she wasn't like unlikable, but she was like unimaginable in a way. Like I couldn't believe that like a person like this actually existed. Like I don't think anyone would ever act like this, you know? And yeah, again, it did say some pretty good things. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but you can check out like my Goodreads review if you want to find out, I guess. But yeah, again, she seemed a bit like too rebellious for me. Like there's a difference between rebellious and genuinely wanting to die. So yeah, then next I read Parallel. This is a graphic novel that I got from Nick Alley once again. And yeah, it was very hard-hitting, but the art was a bit distracting at times, so it kind of took away from the hard-hittingness. But I did quite enjoy it. Again, if the art was a little bit different, I would have probably enjoyed it more. But the art did also have like its own like charm to it, I guess. So yeah, I would recommend it though. Don't know when it comes out, but yeah. Then finally we are at the last book on this list. I'm very glad that this video is over. I don't think I'm gonna be able to film a second video, which is kind of upsetting, but oh well. Anyway, the last book on this list is actually a book that I didn't fully read, and that is Blink. This is another arc from Nick Alley, and it was extremely confusing. I had no idea what was going on like the entire time, and so I didn't fully like read it. And yeah, I didn't like it at all because of that. Like the art was pretty cool and I wanted to like it, but I just didn't know what was going on at all. So yeah, so like I already said, that was the last book on this list. I'm very glad this video is over once again. And yeah, I wanted to film another video after this, but I don't think I have the energy to do it, which is again a bit upsetting because I did already bring the books like here so that I could film with them, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it. So I'm just gonna probably like rest for the entire day, which is again a bit upsetting, but at least I managed to film this video, I guess. And yeah, I hope you guys liked this video anyway, even if I seemed a bit, you know, worse than usual, I guess. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and bye.